Hey guys, Dantixie bringing you another Starfield video. The second video in my breakdown series, the first being about combat weapons and mods. In this video, I'll deep dive into one of the most important aspects of an RPG, the role-playing. Specifically, your character. We'll talk about customization, backgrounds, traits, skills, give examples, show how they work together, and compare changes made since the last showcase. I'm pumped for the possibilities, and I'm certain that if you're not already, you will be after this video. This is an exhaustive breakdown, so if you like it, be sure to show some love. Also, if you want to win yourself a 3080 or a copy of Starfield, stick around to the end to find out how. When you start the game, you'll be thrown into a small sequence involving what's in her hand. You'll then wake up in typical Bethesda fashion that I'm sure will be memed to death. You'll be given a pad, and from there, you can create your character. The first tab is the Biometric ID tab, where you'll select a template. This is intended to be a starting point for building out your character, but you can choose to lock it in if you really want to skip the fun of making a custom creation. There are 40 preset characters, all modeled from real people. Last year's showcase only had 20, so it's doubled down since then. If you don't see something you like, it's okay. You can completely change it soon in the Body and Face tab. Here's the Body tab. Using this handy wheel, you can select just how muscular, thin, or chonky you want to be. It's an elegant way to model the body you want. It would be nice to get into granular details like pec size, but monstrosities are hard to fit armor and suits around without clipping, so it makes sense to limit us here. My dreams of making Captain Pegasaurus Rex the galaxy's most dangerous sandwich thief dies here. So body type means masculine or feminine, but for most people it just means male or female. Same with the walk style. Do you want a bit of feminine flair to your walk or something more sturdy? Would be hilarious seeing a hulking bearded pirate decked out in spikes and bloody knives, walking with a hip sway and speaking like a dainty little flower. Next we have the face. Here you can go into more granular detail. Since last year's video, they've doubled down on almost every option. There's skin tone, head shapes, hair, facial hair, eyes, chin, neck, jewelry, dermesthetic, facial form, tear, jaw, mouth, nose, ears, and more. Within some of those you can further edit. Here's how you can edit your head shape. Here's the options with your mouth. The UI is elegant and easy to use, but here are a few different looks you can have. Every look you see on NPCs, you can have for yourself, but really the most exciting things for me are the customization options that affect gameplay. The first is your background. Your background determines three things: your starting skills, how the characters in the world sometimes treat you, and your unique dialogue options. There are 16 choices shown, but based on the size of the scroll bar, there's 20 choices total. Something that hasn't changed over the year. Unsurprisingly, as your background choice adds a lot to the game. You can select Beast Hunter, Bouncer, Bounty Hunter, Chef, Combat Medic, Cyber Runner, Cyberneticist, Diplomat, Explorer, Gangster, Homesteader, Industrialist, Long Hauler, Pilgrim, Professor, Ronin, and 4 others that haven't been revealed. The Explorer, for example, starts with the skills Lasers, Astrodynamics, and Surveying, whereas the Diplomat starts with Persuasion, Commerce, and Wellness. As you level up, skills will be the way you define your character. So because you don't start with a skill doesn't mean you can't get it later on with a skill point. For example, the Diplomat doesn't start with Lasers, but once it levels up, it can spend a point to grab it. Backgrounds really are just a starting point for your skills. You can make a Diplomat focused entirely on stabbing people in the throat. What's more important though is how your background choice affects how the characters in the world react to you and how it affects dialogue. Here are a few examples. You're recognized for being a diplomat.
Says here you spent some time as a diplomat. Having a way with words might prove useful.
This is the starting scene when they react to you having chosen chef.
You know, the crew still has a betting pool about which restaurant critic you must have crossed to wind up here.
Here's an example of how it can affect dialogue. In this case, for this mission, you can select the Beast Hunter background choice in order to get double the reward.
Fine. I probably should stick to professionals anyway, given what happened the last time.
In this case, you have a diplomat option which will most likely get this NPC on board right away. So your background plays a part in immersing yourself in the character and the world. Remember that Starfield has more dialogue than Skyrim and Fallout combined, so expect a lot of instances where your background will matter, either giving you some flavor or having a real reward or punishment. So let's go through all the backgrounds we know about. First up is the Explorer. They start with all kinds of skills you'd expect except for one, lasers, though one of your mining tools is a laser, so it actually makes sense in the context. Plus, you need to defend yourself when exploring the unknown. They also have Astrodynamics, which is a necessity for reaching those far out unexplored systems. It's a grav drive related skill, and so far we know that the grav drive in your ship will have a limited range. So until you upgrade your skill, you won't have access to the best grav drive tech and therefore will not be able to travel to the further systems. Surveying improves your on-the-ground scanning power, letting you catalog flora and fauna. So overall, explorers will get a leg up when it comes to exploring the universe and planets within them, once again, as you'd expect. Next is the Diplomat. What's interesting is that in the flavor text, it mentions that because of you, lives were spared. Perhaps that will come up during gameplay. The first skill is Persuasion, higher ranks making you more successful when trying to convince characters to see things your way. Here's an example. You're trying to get into this area, so you start talking to the guard and ask him to let you through. You're then offered these choices. In order to convince the man, you're going to need to get 6 bars in 2 remaining turns. You could choose not to risk it and to select the top option since you already have 5 bars and only need 1 more. However, the player goes with the yellow and voila, it's successful. You're given experience and can get through without any bloodshed. The persuasion skill will make you better in conversations like this, so diplomats will have a leg up on those non-combat playthroughs. They also have commerce, which is a skill you want if you want to run a successful business. Last year, the diplomat had diplomacy and bargaining instead of commerce and wellness. I suspect that that's because diplomacy and bargaining moved down to the second tier of the social tree, and it was deemed too valuable to give at the start. When leveling up, you can only buy skills in the first tier of each tree until you invest a particular amount of points in that tree to unlock the second tier. Finally, the diplomat gets wellness. It seems out of place that a diplomat would have a health boost related skill, but here we are. Wellness starts off by increasing your max health, and if they've seen how diplomats actually are in 2023, they would have lowered their health. Then we have the Cybernesis. The flavor text mentions implants and neuroamps, so I'm hoping there's a way to cyberpunk style mod yourself out. Their skills don't reflect this though. They start with medicine, letting them heal wounds and recover more effectively. Then they've replaced robotics with security, letting them hack stronger locks more effectively. In Starfield, there'll be a lock minigame like we've come to expect in Bethesda games, so know that some top quality loot and some major time saves will be behind locked doors. Finally, they get lasers, letting them be more effective with that weapon type. Robotics is still a skill in the game, but it seems to be on the third tier of tech, so perhaps they buffed it and thought it was too powerful to give you so early on. Now you'll need points in tech to get access to it. Next is the Cyber Runner, what seems to be perfect for the ultimate sneaky character build. You start with stealth, which goes without saying. They also get security, so they can sneak around and get into places they shouldn't. Finally, they get theft, letting them pickpocket and do other sneaky things. This seems like a very synergistic starting background that has some dialogue perks when approaching the Red Mile, a hacker group formed in unclaimed space. We can see that in action here. Interestingly though, the Cyber Runner was completely different before, having pistols, security and persuasion. I definitely like the change. Combat Medic is up next, and this is definitely a background you choose if you want to play as the good guy healer. They start with pistol certification, giving them a way to defend themselves as well as medicine to patch up wounds that they or their friends may get. They also have access to wellness, which gives them a further boost to their survivability. Perhaps this is a good class for those wanting to play on some kind of survival mode mod that's surely to surface after release. What's interesting is that they used to have weightlifting instead of wellness. I mentioned this in last year's video, and ex-combat medics commented to tell me it was because their packs weigh upwards of 50 pounds. Well, you're no longer sworn to carry anyone's burdens, fellas. You can find and cook up alien parts. If that sounds appealing, perhaps starting as a chef is the way to go. They have gastronomy, which lets them cook otherwise inaccessible consumables that provide big heals and buffs. They also get access to further meals via the research lab. Then they have dueling, a melee stat. In the flavor, it mentions that melee can often be deadlier than range combat when invested into, and I hope that that's not empty promises. Finally, they get scavenging, which aids in finding just a little bit extra when looting around the universe. Perfect for a chef living on a budget. They used to have wellness instead of scavenging, but this makes more sense. So those are the backgrounds we've seen so far. You're welcome to speculate on the others in the comments, but I'm interested in the bounty hunter and the gangster backgrounds. If anything is guaranteed, it's that Ronan gets access to dueling. So you've chosen your background, what's next? Your traits, of course. Traits are entirely optional perks that you can pick up that usually have both an up and down side. For example, an introvert gets more oxygen, or stamina if you will, when adventuring alone, but less when adventuring with other human companions. You can have up to 3 traits selected at the start of the game, so you can have 0, 1, 2, or 3 and aren't locked into taking them all. Traits have a downside, so there's a special way in-game to get rid of a trait that you no longer want. We can go through how soon. Also, picking up some traits will close off access to others. For example, you can't have both intro and extrovert selected. There were changes made to these options presented last year, but there's the change starter home to dream home and added hero worshipped or removed unwanted hero for it. I know there's irony in that. We know below the fold is the trait wanted, which we'll go through later. So overall, there are at least 17 traits to choose from. Starting with Raised Universal. This trait gives you access to a special chest full of items in the Sanctum Universum, but you lose access to the House of Enlightened chest. You can only have one religion trait selected. In this case, it seems prudent to pick one if you can bear it, as you can loot the chest and then do the task to remove that trait if you wish. Not picking any will mean you don't have any chest at all. Here we see Raised Enlightened, which is the exact mirror. I'm sure after release we'll have an idea of which is better, but for now, you'll have to roll a dice. It used to give you access to a special store in those respective factions, but perhaps they discovered that closing one off was too restrictive. Another religion is Serpent's Embrace. It makes it so grab jumping provides a boost to health and endurance, but those stats are lowered if you don't jump regularly, like an addiction. Perhaps this has changed now, but this is certainly an interesting drawback. Keep jumping around the universe or have major come downs. It's also shown that this gives you special dialogue when running into particular serpent worshipping zealots. The next trait is Neon Street Rat. It gives you special dialogue options and better rewards in Neon. But if you commit a crime in other factions' jurisdiction, you get a higher bounty. It can't be combined with another faction allegiance trait. This doesn't seem like much of a downside, and like religion, picking up one faction is probably the way to go if you want to min-max. Neon is a pleasure city, so if you're planning on going a crime lord or a guy that's out to clean up the streets, this might be the trait for you. Next is Kids Stuff, which lets you roleplay having parents. Damn, Bethesda's going all out because we never get to do that. Your parents are alive and well and you can visit them, no doubt giving you unique dialogue and perhaps some rewards. It costs you 2% of your credits every week, but it may just be worth it to hear how proud of you they are for stealing 14 freighters, 3 tons of orange juice and being directly involved in a universe-wide sandwich shortage. Also, it's a lot cheaper than it used to be. It used to be 10% of all money you earned got sent to them. It's also possible that this perk makes it so Grandma shows up in her ship occasionally and offers you some food, though Grandma seems like her own separate named NPC. Then we have Introvert, which we've gone through, and Extrovert, which is the exact mirror. If you know you'll always have companions out, Extrovert is the way to go. Inversely, if you prefer a more alone touch or the company of robots, Introvert may be for you. I resent this implication though. I'm an introvert, and it's not that I don't want the company of others, it's that I don't want the company of morons that take my energy. Wait, that actually works. Then we have Hero Worshipped, possibly the best trait yet. You've earned the attention of an annoying, adoring fan who'll show up randomly and jabber at you incessantly. On the plus side, he'll join your ship's crew and give you gifts. Those who remember the fan in Oblivion will love or hate this trait. Those who get Comrade Werner vibes from the Mass Effect series will be forgiven as well. This is a good time to remind you that any trait can be removed, and one way to remove this one is to, well, remove the fan. Keep in mind you can opt to have parents and, well, Bethesda is letting you remove any traits. Put 2 and 2 together, people. Stay off the internet for a while after release because there's sure to be a ton of top 10 ways to kill your parents videos. I'll be sure to get in on that too. It remains to be seen how valuable these gifts are, but no doubt having the fan as an option will give you more content. Now, we don't have the image of it, but the wanted trait gives you a damage buff when your health is low, but mercs and bounty hunters will randomly find you, land and attack. This may be a benefit to you as there'll be meat to your skill raising grinder, and they'll be delivering you a ship and items on a silver platter. However, if you aren't kitted out for spontaneous combat at all times, it might be debilitating. Then we have Alien DNA. It gives you a higher health pool and greater endurance, but healing items aren't as effective, so you'll last longer but need more items to recover. We really need to see just how much higher the health and oxygen pool will be, because if it can be offset over time, like with level ups and skills like wellness, the downside seems terrible. In most Bethesda games, healing items are limited and often unrefined food items don't restore much health as is. Next is Spaced. Health and endurance are increased when in space but decreased when on the surface, and the inverse to this is Terra Firma. If you absolutely hate getting involved in space combat, then Terra Firma would be a wise investment. However, I can't see the game play out where everything you need to do is just in space. You'll need to plant your feet on planets, so space would only be a good trait if you're going a peaceful, non-combat build with a little more focus on space combat or exploration. Finally, we have Dream Home. You start with a luxurious customizable house on a peaceful planet. Unfortunately, it comes with a 50,000 credit mortgage with Gal Bank that has to be paid weekly. Wait, I mean fortunately, because it's the far future and mortgages are only 50k. I'm paying 1k a week for mine and I'm honestly struggling. Now this means you won't be required to build something from scratch, but it also means you don't get to choose where it is. It also has a downside of the cost. We're unsure of how a space mortgage works, but I'm sure you can refuse to pay and fight some debt collectors. Does the debt have interest? How big is the house? We don't know anything about this, so its value is hard to say. I personally want to be able to craft something from scratch where I want it, but I also don't want to miss out on content. It's really a head scratcher. The trait used to be a house on a peaceful moon, so it's been upgraded at least. Now we come to skills. Skills are what round out and complete the customization of your character. You get skills by choosing your background, then when you level up, you get a skill point to spend. You can either use that point to buy a new skill, like picking up security here, or upgrade an existing one. But wait, you can't just upgrade a skill whenever you want. You need to complete a challenge with the skill to do so. So for the security skill we just bought, you need to pick 5 locks in order to get access to rank 2, and we need to put a skill point in order to reap the rank 2 benefit and start progressing on rank 3. So it might be beneficial to invest in skills you know you'll be using. For example, if you know you'll be using pistols, picking it up early will start your challenge progress journey early too. There are 5 different skill trees with 4 different tiers in each from top to bottom. These trees are physical, social, combat, science, and tech. So let's go through the skills we know and then speculate on ones that we don't, starting with security. Security is located in the tech tree. Rank 1 lets you now pick advanced locks and have up to 2 auto attempts banked. Rank 2 lets you hack advanced locks, have 3 auto attempts banked, but also gives you a blue prompt when a pick can be slotted, making the process easier. Level 3 lets you hack master level locks with 4 attempts, and finally rank 4 doesn't increase the difficulty of the locks you can pick because master is the highest. Instead, it makes it so you can expend a digilock to eliminate options during the attempt, along with letting you bank 5 auto attempts. I never thought it was necessary to fully level security or lockpicking related skills, and I see no reason to start with this one. Worst case, you'll waste a lot of digipicks and need to reload when this skill is just rank 3. You'll still be able to break into anywhere you need to. At least one rank in this will be helpful though, as I'm sure there'll be a lot of locked places in the game. The next skill is Intimidation, which is located in the social tree. With this skill, you can force NPCs to flee from you. Rank 1 lets you intimidate those below your level. Rank 2 lets you use it on enemies up to 10 levels higher. Rank 3 up to 20 levels higher. All the challenges to level this skill involve successful intimidations, so it might be an effective way to stay out of trouble and avoid extremely hard fights. I usually avoid these kinds of skills because they never work on higher level enemies, but this has me interested now. Finally, rank 4 makes it so the skill lasts a substantial time more. The key word here is substantial, and the only time you use that word is if it's more than 50%. Otherwise, you'd say a moderate amount or a short amount more. That's my educated assumption anyway. So intimidation and diplomacy might be good skills to help you avoid fights and get by just on your charms. The next skill we see is ballistics, which unsurprisingly increases your effectiveness with ballistic weapons. Rank 1 is 10%, 2 is 20%, 3 is 30%, and the rank 4 gives your ballistic weapons 30% more range. This rank might be especially effective while using heavy weapons or shotguns. These ranks stack, so with all 4 ranks you'll have 60% more ballistic weapon damage and 30% more range. Unsurprisingly, to rank this skill up you need to use the ballistic weapons to kill enemies. 250 kills needed to rank up to 4. Keep in mind that this is from an older build, so no doubt the numbers have changed. Next, I want to show you some skills that we can see but don't have all the details on. First is Decontamination on the 3rd tier of the physical tree, meaning you need to spend quite a few points in the physical tree before you can get access. Rank 1 gives you a slightly increased chance to recover from infections, and to level to rank 2, you need to recover from 5. It's unclear just how dangerous infections are or how often you get infected, but since you're exploring uncharted space, you have to expect it'll happen often. I wonder if there'll be a mutation system where you'll sometimes develop traits from infections that are beneficial. Next is Leadership in the 3rd tier of the social tree. Rank 1 gives you 15% faster companion affinity growth. Useful if you want to rank up your companions faster or get to that juicy romance in a timely manner. You'll need to sprint a kilometer with your follower in order to rank this up. It seems quite easy to do. Next is Rapid Reloading. It decreases the time it takes to reload, but strangely enough, this skill is located deep in the combat tree. I don't see many people taking an interest in decreasing reload time, and I really don't see it changing now. Let's say that reloading takes 3 seconds. Decreasing it by even half is only a 1.5 second reduction. Most of the time it seems better to simply upgrade the damage or put points in other skills or just Swap weapons. The old video does show that the rank 4 of the skill lets you have a chance of reloading your weapon twice as fast as normal, which, surprise surprise, isn't any better than the example I provided. Still a 1.5 second reduction, and even less since ranks before were sure to reduce the reload time by a percentage. Plus, it's a chance, and it isn't guaranteed. I only see this skill being passable when using extremely heavy weapons. The next skill is Astrophysics. 3 tiers down in the science tree. It lets you scan the moons of your current planet. You also have a 10% chance of discovering a trait when scanning. For those who don't know, planets can have traits which add to their value, so perhaps getting this early on will ensure plenty of planets and moons get traits for you to exploit, and making it so finding a dream home planet with the right traits will happen sooner. You can always make use of abundant planets, so scan things to increase the ranks of this skill. Chemistry is next on the same tier, rank 1 letting you create improved chems and research additional ones at the research lab. You can upgrade this by creating 10 chems. If you go by Fallout 4, chems will be extremely powerful short-lasting buffs. This could supplement you in combat if you haven't invested heavily into it and invested more in the science tree. I say Fallout 4 and not 76 because 76 was multiplayer and couldn't do the powerful slowdown effects, for example. Next is particle beam weapon systems in the 3rd tier of the tech tree. This is a ship-based skill that lets you use particle weapons more effectively. They're good at damaging multiple ship systems at once, and we've seen the non-ship based particle weapon before, and it does both physical and energy damage, so it makes sense that this damages multiple systems at once. Then there's robotics on the same tier. Previously, it increased your damage against turrets and mechs, and the flavor text suggests that this is still the case. Why this is on the 3rd tier is anyone's guess, as specializing your damage to an enemy type is never a favorite choice. Perhaps later tiers give you the ability to hack or to shut down the robots or turrets, which would justify the choice. The next skill we're going to peek at is Xenosociology. It's the final tier of the social tree and lets you bring up a little menu here when facing aliens. I suspect the first rank lets you pacify them, the next rank lets you make them flee, the next puts them in a frenzy state to attack their allies, and the final one lets you control them like you would a companion. Though we can't be sure if this lets you take them with you. It would be amazing if you could recruit aliens and play a space Pokemon of sorts. You could tame creatures in Fallout to protect your settlements, so I have to imagine that this would be possible in the game. I really hope so. Boost Pack is a tier 1 tech skill that lets you boost pack and utilize them more effectively with higher ranks. Seeing how it both lets you traverse the world quicker and easier and gives you another dimension in combat makes it so putting at least one rank in it will be core on a lot of builds. The final tier of the physical tree has Neurostrikes. We can't be sure exactly what it does, but I suspect it adds electromagnetic damage to unarmed strikes, as you can see the infographic for EM damage when you strike enemies. Without the tooltip, it's hard to know its exact effect, but it looks cool punting enemies around, and I suspect draining the bar completely will stun them. Next is Payloads, a tier 2 skill in the tech tree. It seems to focus around cargo space on your ship, which would be great for a smuggler playstyle. Then we have Targeting. It's a tier 3 skill in the combat tree, and ranks increase your accuracy and your range when shooting without aiming. As an old school gamer, I'm used to games like Doom and Quake where I never had the option to aim down sights. I like that there's a skill that rewards my shoot from the hip personality. Then we have Sniper Certification in the same tier. It improves snipers with the first rank decreasing the sway. Then is Heavy Weapon Certification on the 2nd tier, rank 4 letting you gain 30 damage resistance when aiming down the sights with a heavy weapon. To unlock, you need to kill 250 enemies with the said weapon type. Demolitions is on the same tier, the 3rd rank making it so explosives do 30% more damage and have a 30% larger radius. Since it seems like there's no hard cap on how many throwables you can carry, with weight or mass being the only limitation, this might be a legitimate playstyle. Combine this with boost packs for a death from above build. Now I'd love to hear what you think each skill will represent based on their icons. There's a ton of speculation left to do. Now keep in mind, skills can influence what you can research. We saw gastronomy and chemistry add further consumables to research. We also know that a few skills will aid in settlement and ship building. So keep that in mind when choosing your build. It's not as simple as picking a weapon type and sitting back in your chair, but I guess you could technically do that too. So when making a character, you first choose how you look, how you speak, and how you walk. You'll then proceed to choose your background, which indicates what you were before you found the artifact, as well as give you 3 starting skills. You'll then pick your optional traits, and bingo, you're shipped into the world ready to start your adventure. After your first level up, you'll choose which skill to buy or upgrade, all the while completing your challenges in order to give you the option of upgrading their assigned skills to the next rank. There are 5 skill trees with 4 tiers within them, and each skill has 4 ranks, so there's a ton of choice in how to customize your character. And that's everything. What do you think? How are you going to build your starting character? Let me know below. I recently upgraded to a 4090, so why not give away my 3080 and a few copies of Starfield? If you want to be in the running, all you need to do is be subscribed, hit the bell, and like and comment on my Starfield videos. For more entries, do the same on other Starfield videos or check out my Twitter and Discord. The winner will be chosen using RNG, so more entries give you more chances. Best of luck and thank you so much for watching. I'll be covering the game more than anyone else, so be sure to stay tuned. Ciao friends.